The winds of the Central Asian steppe never truly rested. Across an endless sea of grass stretching from the Altai Mountains to the edge of the Gobi Desert, powerful gusts swept over rolling hills, frozen rivers, and vast open plains. It was a land of extremes, where scorching summers gave way to bitter winters, and survival depended not on wealth or walls, but on strength, courage, and adaptability. This harsh environment shaped one of history's most extraordinary civilizations, the Mongols. Long before the Mongol Empire became the largest contiguous land empire in history, the people of the steppe lived as nomadic herders. They traveled with their families, horses, sheep, goats, cattle, and camels, following seasonal pastures in search of fresh grass and water. Permanent cities were rare. Instead, families lived in portable round tents known as gurs, or yurts, which could be dismantled, transported, and rebuilt within hours. Life on the steppe demanded resilience. Children learned to ride horses almost as soon as they could walk. By adolescence, many could fire arrows accurately while galloping at full speed. Hunting, herding, and warfare were not separate skills. They were part of everyday life. Every member of society contributed to survival. The Mongols depended on their animals for nearly everything. Horses provided transportation and military mobility. Sheep and goats supplied meat, milk, wool, and hides. Leather became clothing, armor, and saddles. Milk was fermented into drinks such as arag, while dried meat and cheese sustained travelers during long journeys. Unlike the agricultural kingdoms surrounding them, the Mongols owned little land. Their wealth was measured by livestock, loyal followers, and family alliances. Yet the steppe was far from peaceful. For centuries, numerous tribes competed for grazing lands, trade routes, and political influence. Alliances shifted constantly. Raids, revenge, and warfare shaped everyday existence. Tribal loyalty was often stronger than any larger sense of national identity. Among these tribes were the Borjigin. Around 1612, though historians continue to debate the exact year, a boy named Temujin was born near the Onan River. His father, Yasuge, was a respected tribal leader who belonged to the Borjigin clan. According to later Mongol tradition, Temujin entered the world clutching a blood clot in his fist, an omen believed to predict that he would become a great warrior. Whether historical fact or symbolic legend, the story reflected how later generations viewed his remarkable destiny. Temujin's childhood was anything but comfortable. When he was around 9 years old, his father arranged a future marriage between Temujin and a young girl named Horde, following the customs of the time. On the journey home, however, tragedy struck. Yasuge was poisoned by members of a rival Tatar tribe. He died shortly afterward. This death transformed the family's future. Without its leader, the Borjigin clan abandoned Holin and her children. The family lost protection, livestock, and political support. Suddenly, they found themselves alone on the unforgiving steppe. Survival became their greatest challenge. Holin displayed extraordinary determination. She gathered wild berries, roots, edible plants, and fish from nearby rivers. Her children hunted small animals whenever possible. The family endured years of hunger, hardship, and constant uncertainty. These experiences deeply influenced Temujin's character. He learned that loyalty could disappear quickly. He witnessed how easily powerful families could become helpless. He understood the importance of earning trustworthy allies, rather than solely relying on blood relationships. Even within his own family, conflict emerged. Competition over scarce food created growing tensions between Temujin and his older half-brother Bekthar. According to the Secret History of the Mongols, the primary historical source describing his early life, the episode ended violently when Temujin and his younger brother Kasar killed Bekthar. Although disturbing by modern standards, the episode illustrates the desperate conditions facing the family and the brutal realities of steppe life. As Temujin grew older, new dangers appeared. The Taichud tribe, former rivals within the Mongol world, captured him. They placed a heavy wooden collar around his neck and held him prisoner. Escape seemed almost impossible. Yet one night, Temujin seized an opportunity. He fled into the darkness, hiding in a river while pursuers searched nearby. A sympathetic family secretly sheltered him despite enormous personal risk. Eventually, he escaped successfully. The experience left a lasting impression. Temujin never forgot acts of loyalty shown by ordinary people. Throughout his later career, he often rewarded individuals based on merit and faithfulness rather than noble birth alone, a policy that would become one of the foundations of his future empire. After regaining his freedom, Temujin sought to rebuild his family's position. He married Borta, fulfilling the arrangement made years earlier by his father. Their marriage became one of the most important relationships in his life. Soon afterward, however, another crisis unfolded. Members of the Merkit tribe raided Temujin's camp and abducted Borta. The attack was devastating. Rather than accepting defeat, Temujin sought assistance from powerful allies. One was Togrul, ruler of the Chagatai tribe, and an old friend of Temujin's father. Another was his childhood companion Yamuka. Together, they launched a rescue expedition. The combined force defeated the Merkits and successfully recovered Borta. The victory strengthened Temujin's reputation among neighboring tribes. More importantly, it demonstrated the power of strategic alliances. Over the following years, increasing numbers of families chose to join Temujin's growing following. Many admired his leadership. Others respected his willingness to reward ability rather than family background alone. Some simply believed he offered greater security than rival chiefs. Yet his rise also created new enemies. Among them was Yamuka. Once close friends, the two leaders gradually developed very different visions for the future of the steppe. Yamuka supported the traditional aristocratic system in which noble families dominated political life. Temujin believed talented individuals deserved promotion regardless of birth. This disagreement evolved into open conflict. Civil war spread across the Mongol tribes. For years, victories and defeats alternated. Neither leader achieved permanent dominance. However, Temujin steadily attracted more followers. Former enemies sometimes joined his ranks after defeat, because he often spared those willing to serve loyally. Skilled blacksmiths, craftsmen, and administrators received opportunities regardless of tribal origin. Such policies strengthened his coalition. Military organization also evolved. Rather than grouping warriors strictly by tribe, Temujin increasingly mixed individuals from different backgrounds into unified military units. This reduced tribal rivalries while encouraging loyalty to him personally. Discipline became strict. Cowardice, desertion, and theft faced severe punishment. Bravery, competence, and loyalty earned promotion. These principles created a more effective fighting force than many neighboring tribes possessed. Temujin also recognized the enormous importance of intelligence and communication. Messengers carried information rapidly across long distances. Scouts carefully observed enemy movements before battles. Leaders were expected to coordinate rather than act independently. Such organization would later distinguish Mongol armies from many of their opponents. His growing influence alarmed rival chiefs. Several attempted to unite against him, yet repeated victories gradually shifted the balance of power. Each campaign brought additional horses, livestock, weapons, and followers. By the beginning of the 12th century, Temujin had become the dominant military leader across much of the eastern steppe. His success resulted not merely from battlefield skill. He understood politics, he rewarded loyalty, he built alliances, he adapted quickly. He learned from both victories and failures. Most importantly, he inspired confidence among people who had experienced decades of tribal conflict. Many now believed lasting unity might finally be possible. In 1206, representatives from numerous Mongol tribes gathered at a great assembly known as a Kurultai. After years of warfare and negotiation, they formally recognized Temujin as the supreme ruler of the united Mongols. During the ceremony, he received a new title, Genghis Khan. Although historians debate the precise meaning of the title, it is commonly interpreted as universal ruler or oceanic ruler, symbolizing authority over all the Mongol tribes. This moment marked one of the greatest turning points in world history. For generations, the tribes of the steppe had fought one another for survival. Now, for the first time, they stood largely united under a single leader. Few outside the steppe paid much attention. Neighboring kingdoms regarded the Mongols as another collection of nomadic horsemen. They could not imagine what was about to happen. Within only a few decades, the armies of Genghis Khan would sweep across Asia and Europe with astonishing speed, defeating powerful kingdoms, reshaping trade routes, and creating the largest contiguous land empire the world had ever seen. The rise of the Mongol Empire had begun. The gathering at the Kurultai in 1206 changed the course of world history. For generations, the tribes of the Mongolian steppe had been divided by rivalries, blood feuds, and shifting alliances. Now they stood together under one leader. Temujin had become Genghis Khan, and with that title came a vision far greater than simply ruling the Mongol tribes. His first priority was not conquering distant kingdoms. It was strengthening the nation he had just created. Genghis Khan understood that unity would not last unless it was supported by discipline, justice, and organization. Many of his followers had once been enemies. Tribal loyalties still existed, and old rivalries could easily return. To prevent this, he introduced reforms that transformed the Mongols from a loose alliance of tribes into one of the most effective military and political systems in history. One of his most important decisions was reorganizing society around a decimal military system. Instead of dividing warriors by tribe, he grouped them into units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000 men. Every unit included people from different clans. This simple change weakened tribal divisions. A soldier's loyalty was now expected to belong first to his commander and ultimately to Genghis Khan himself. Promotion was based largely on ability and loyalty rather than noble birth. A skilled warrior from a poor family could rise to command thousands of soldiers. At the same time, a nobleman who failed in battle could lose both rank and influence. For many ordinary Mongols, this represented a dramatic change. Talent mattered more than ancestry. Discipline became absolute. Orders had to be obeyed immediately. Cowardice during battle could result in severe punishment. Stealing from fellow soldiers was forbidden. Loot captured during campaigns was divided according to established rules rather than personal greed. These policies created trust within the army. Every warrior understood his responsibilities. Every commander knew failure carried consequences. Genghis Khan also introduced a legal code commonly known as the Yasa. Although historians debate exactly how much of the Yasa survives today, contemporary accounts describe laws emphasizing discipline, loyalty, honesty, and order. Murder, theft, betrayal, and desertion received harsh punishments. Religious practices were generally respected. Merchants received protection. Messengers traveling on official business were guaranteed safe passage. The purpose of these laws was not merely punishment. They helped unify people from different tribes under common rules. Communication became another key advantage. Across the growing Mongol state, relay stations were established where mounted couriers could quickly exchange horses and continue carrying messages. This communication network, later known as the Yam system, allowed information to travel across enormous distances with remarkable speed. Military orders, intelligence reports, diplomatic messages, and government instructions could move faster than almost any rival kingdom. it became one of the greatest communication systems of the medieval world. While strengthening internal organization, Genghis Khan also prepared for expansion. To the south lay the Tangut Kingdom of Western Xia. Its rulers controlled important trade routes linking China with Central Asia. Initially, Genghis Khan demanded submission. When negotiations failed, he launched military campaigns. The Mongol army moved with extraordinary speed. Unlike many medieval armies that depended on long supply lines, Mongol warriors traveled lightly. Each soldier often possessed several horses, changing mounts during long journeys to keep moving rapidly. They carried dried meat, fermented milk, bows, arrows, and essential equipment, allowing them to cover astonishing distances in very little time. The horse was the heart of Mongol civilization. Small but incredibly strong, Mongol horses could survive harsh winters by digging through snow to find grass. Their endurance gave Mongol armies unmatched mobility. Every warrior became an expert rider from childhood. They could shoot arrows accurately while galloping at full speed, turn suddenly during combat, and coordinate complex battlefield maneuvers. The Mongol composite bow became one of history's most feared weapons. Constructed from wood, horn, and animal sinew, it produced tremendous power despite its relatively compact size. A skilled archer could strike targets at impressive distances with remarkable accuracy. Combined with constant movement, this weapon made Mongol cavalry extraordinarily difficult to defeat. Rather than relying on brute force alone, Genghis Khan emphasized intelligence gathering before every campaign. Scouts traveled far ahead of the main army. They studied roads, rivers, mountains, supplies, enemy numbers, and political conditions. Knowledge became a weapon. The Mongols often understood their opponents before battle even began. Psychological warfare also became one of their greatest strengths. If a city surrendered peacefully, it was often spared destruction and allowed to continue trading under Mongol authority. If resistance continued, however, punishment could be devastating. News of these victories spread rapidly. Sometimes entire cities surrendered simply because they feared what might happen if they resisted. The Mongols recognized that reputation could conquer places before armies even arrived. After campaigns against Western Xia, Genghis Khan turned toward the powerful Jin dynasty in northern China. The Jin Empire possessed large cities, strong fortifications, and millions of inhabitants. Many believed nomadic horsemen could never defeat such a powerful civilization. The Mongols proved otherwise. Instead of attacking every fortress directly, they isolated cities, cut supply routes, and exploited weaknesses. Engineers captured from earlier campaigns taught the Mongols how to construct siege machines capable of breaking city walls. This willingness to learn from conquered peoples became another defining feature of Mongol success. Rather than rejecting foreign knowledge, Genghis Khan adopted useful technologies wherever he found them. Chinese engineers built catapults. Persian administrators managed finances. Turkic soldiers joined the cavalry. Scholars, craftsmen, and merchants often received protection because they contributed valuable skills to the empire. By combining talents from many different cultures, the Mongols became stronger with every conquest. Their armies also mastered deception. A famous tactic involved the feigned retreat. Mongol cavalry would appear to panic and flee the battlefield. Believing victory was near, enemy armies often abandoned disciplined formations and chased them. Then, at a carefully chosen moment, the fleeing horsemen suddenly turned around. Hidden Mongol units emerged from the sides. The pursuing army found itself surrounded. This tactic repeatedly produced decisive victories against much larger forces. Military communication relied on flags, horns, drums, and signal arrows. Commanders coordinated movements across great distances with remarkable precision. Even during fast-moving battles, different units operated together according to carefully prepared plans. This level of organization surprised many opponents accustomed to less coordinated warfare. As victories accumulated, neighboring rulers grew increasingly concerned. Some attempted diplomacy, others strengthened border defenses. Few fully understood the scale of Genghis Khan's ambitions. To him, expansion served several purposes. Conquest secured trade routes. Victory rewarded loyal followers with wealth. Military success discouraged future rebellions. Control of neighboring territories also protected the Mongol homeland from potential enemies. One of the empire's greatest strengths remained its ability to absorb people rather than simply destroy them. Many defeated warriors joined Mongol armies. Craftsmen received employment. Administrators entered government service. Merchants expanded international trade. Entire populations gradually became part of a rapidly growing imperial system. By the second decade of the 13th century, Genghis Khan had transformed the Mongols from divided nomadic tribes into a disciplined military power unlike any the world had seen. Yet his greatest campaign still lay ahead. To the west stretched the wealthy cities of Central Asia and the vast Khwarazmian Empire, one of the richest states in the Islamic world. A single diplomatic incident would soon trigger a conflict that reshaped the history of Asia, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe. The armies of Genghis Khan were no longer simply defending the Mongolian steppe. They were preparing to build the largest contiguous land empire in human history. The transformation of the Mongols from scattered nomadic tribes into disciplined military power changed the balance of power across Eurasia. By the early 13th century, Genghis Khan had secured much of Mongolia, defeated neighboring rivals, and established an army unlike any the world had ever seen. Yet his greatest campaigns were still to come. The next major challenge emerged from the Khwarazmian Empire, a vast and wealthy state stretching across much of present-day Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Iran, and Afghanistan. Located along the Silk Road, its cities prospered through international trade linking China, the Middle East, and Europe. Initially, Genghis Khan sought peaceful relations. He recognized that commerce could benefit both empires. He sent a caravan of merchants carrying valuable goods to establish trade. Instead of welcoming them, officials in the border city of Otrar accused the merchants of espionage. The governor seized their property and ordered their execution. Genghis Khan responded with diplomacy rather than immediate war. He dispatched ambassadors demanding justice. The Khwarazmian ruler, Shah Muhammad II, rejected the request. According to historical accounts, several ambassadors were executed or humiliated. Among the Mongols, harming diplomatic envoys was considered one of the gravest offenses. For Genghis Khan, the incident demanded a response. In 1219, he launched one of history's most remarkable military campaigns. Mongol armies crossed deserts, rivers, and mountain ranges with astonishing speed. Rather than advancing as a single force, they divided into multiple coordinated armies, confusing defenders about their true objectives. City after city fell: Bukhara, Samarkand, Urgench, Merv, Nishapur. Many surrendered peacefully and were spared widespread destruction. Others resisted fiercely and suffered devastating consequences. The campaign demonstrated the extraordinary effectiveness of Mongol strategy, mobility, intelligence gathering, and psychological warfare. The Khwarazmian Empire collapsed within only a few years. Its ruler fled across his shrinking kingdom before dying in exile. The conquest opened vast new territories to Mongol influence and permanently altered the political landscape of Central Asia. Yet, Genghis Khan's ambitions extended beyond simple conquest. Wherever possible, he encouraged trade. Merchants received protection. Travel routes became safer under Mongol control. Messengers crossed enormous distances through the Yam relay system. Scholars, physicians, engineers, and craftsmen from many cultures entered Mongol service. Although warfare accompanied the empire's expansion, so too did an unprecedented exchange of ideas, technologies, goods, and knowledge across Eurasia. This growing network later became known as the Pax Mongolica, or Mongol Peace. Under Mongol rule, merchants could travel more safely than before along large sections of the Silk Road. Chinese inventions, Persian science, Islamic mathematics, European goods, and countless cultural influences moved across continents more freely than they had in centuries. Even as campaigns continued, Genghis Khan showed a practical approach towards governing conquered peoples. Rather than forcing everyone to adopt Mongol customs, he generally allowed different religions to continue practicing freely. Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, and followers of traditional beliefs often lived within the empire under varying degrees of tolerance. Skilled administrators from conquered societies frequently remained in office, helping manage taxation, trade, and local government. Genghis Khan valued competence wherever he found it. His empire became remarkably diverse. By the early 1220s, Mongol armies had reached the Caucasus Mountains and defeated powerful coalitions including Georgian, Armenian, and Kipchak forces. Scouting expeditions entered Eastern Europe, demonstrating that even distant kingdoms were not beyond Mongol reach. Few rulers fully understood what was approaching. The empire continued expanding in multiple directions simultaneously. In 1227, during a campaign against the Western Shah Kingdom, Genghis Khan died. The exact cause of his death remains uncertain. Some historical accounts suggest illness, others mention injuries sustained during the campaign. Legends offer many different explanations, but no definitive answer has been confirmed. According to Mongol tradition, the location of his tomb remains unknown. His burial place has never been conclusively identified. Even in death, mystery surrounded the man who had transformed world history. Leadership passed to his sons and grandsons. Rather than collapsing after his death, the empire expanded even further. Under Ögedei Khan, the Mongols completed the conquest of the Jin Dynasty in northern China. New campaigns swept across Persia, Russia, Hungary, and Poland. In 1241, Mongol armies defeated European forces at the battles of Legnica and Mohi, shocking kingdoms that had never before encountered such an effective military machine. Eventually, the empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe. It became the largest contiguous land empire in recorded history, covering approximately 24 million square kilometers at its greatest extent. No empire before or since has controlled such a vast, uninterrupted territory. Over time, however, governing such an enormous empire became increasingly difficult. Following the deaths of successive great khans, disagreements emerged among different branches of the ruling family. Gradually, the empire divided into several major khanates: the Yuan dynasty in China, the Ilkhanate in Persia, the Golden Horde across Russia and Eastern Europe, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia. Although these states shared a common origin, they increasingly developed independently. Different cultures, religions, political priorities, and regional interests gradually weakened imperial unity. By the 14th century, the Mongol Empire no longer functioned as a single political entity, yet its influence endured. Trade flourished across Eurasia. Diplomatic contacts expanded. Travelers such as Marco Polo journeyed through Mongol territories, describing the wealth and sophistication of Asia to European audiences. Technologies, inventions, crops, artistic styles, and scientific knowledge crossed continents more rapidly than before. Military historians continue studying Mongol tactics today. Rapid mobility, careful planning, excellent intelligence gathering, strict discipline, flexible command structures, psychological warfare, combined arms operations, these principles influence military thinking for centuries. Modern historians also recognize that the Mongol conquests brought both remarkable achievements and immense suffering. The empire connected civilizations on an unprecedented scale, encouraged commerce, and promoted cultural exchange. At the same time, many campaigns caused widespread destruction, heavy civilian casualties, and the devastation of entire cities. Understanding the Mongol Empire, therefore, requires acknowledging both its extraordinary accomplishments and the human cost of its expansion. More than 800 years after Genghis Khan united the tribes of the steppe, his legacy remains one of the most influential in world history. From a childhood marked by poverty, betrayal, and survival, Temujin rose to become Genghis Khan, the founder of an empire that reshaped Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. His story is not merely the history of conquest, it is the story of leadership, organization, adaptation, ambition, and the extraordinary impact one individual can have on the course of civilization. The thunder of Mongol horses has long since faded from the great Eurasian steppe, but the legacy of the empire they built continues to echo through history, reminding us that from the most unexpected places can emerge forces capable of changing the world forever.